A Christian is a person who need not fear death. Built into every human heart is a natural fear of death. We have this life, and even if it's a difficult one, unless something's going terribly wrong, we want the life to continue. Or we can conceive of, if the life were better, I would want it to continue. But in every case, there's this desire for life, the flip side of which is a fear of death. And yet the Christian need not fear death. And what a glorious gift to live through this life without the shadow of death hanging over us, without this fear of death tainting everything. Because, you can have everything in the world. You can have the best relationships. Everybody loves you. You have all the stuff that you ever desired. You have a position at work that is just utterly satisfying. And what hangs over it all? The fact that it's going to end. Whew, that just eats away at us if this life is all we were made for. But the Christian need not fear death. The only thing the Christian need fear is sin. Because death is just a temporary separation of my body from my soul. But at the resurrection of the dead, guess what? Those two are coming back together. But sin is a separation of my soul from my Lord. And our Lord doesn't force himself upon me unless I initiate that reconciliation. Well, it's his grace that initiates everything, but we can get to that discussion later on. Christians are invited to live as the Maccabees that we read about in today's first reading. Gosh, as I was listening to it, just to this Mass, I thought, next time that I'm tempted to sin, and I am every day, but next time that it's clear I'm being tempted to do something that I know is wrong, I should read this passage and see, how do I measure up to these Maccabees, these seven sons of this one mother, right? One of the brothers, speaking for the others, said, "What do you expect to achieve by questioning us? We are ready to die rather than transgress the laws of our ancestors." And then one by one they show themselves to be heroes. But what is the fuel that allows them to move forward? What is it that gives them hope, that gives them courage to face death bravely? It's their hope for the resurrection. Right? "You accursed fiend, you are depriving us of this present life, but the King of the world will raise us up to live again forever. It is for his laws that we are dying." The thing that every human heart fears, they didn't. Because not only did they have the natural fear of death, but it was overcome by the supernatural grace of God and promise of the resurrection. After him, the third suffered their cruel sport. He put out his tongue at once when told to do so, and bravely held out his hands as he spoke these noble words. They took out some of the gruesome details in this reading. But they were torturing them. They were cutting out their tongues. They were cutting off their hands, and still they said, "Really? You think you're going to scare me with that? You think that you're going to place a wedge between myself and my God by depriving me temporarily of the gifts that he gave me? And through depriving me temporarily of that, you think you're going to get me to give up for all eternity on my relationship with him? Absolutely not." And so he says, "It was from heaven that I received these. For the sake of his laws, I disdained them. From him, I hope to receive them again." The Christian, and already foreshadowed with these faithful Jews, death is not the end. It's the beginning of that life for which we were meant. Now, up to this point, I've been speaking in abstract. And about heaven, we do that too often. We speak in the abstract. Who here this week thought for at least 1 minute about heaven? I got to be honest, that's a higher number than I expected. So, well done. But when we're working hard for a vacation, Whenever life gets tough at work and we're just like, I don't want to do this anymore, we think of that beach and we keep going. Whenever we have a goal in mind, we're willing to endure whatever suffering is in the path of getting there. If we don't think about heaven, we're not going to sacrifice for it. It's going to be a very difficult Christian life if we don't have the goal always in mind. Now, the goal is something that's a free gift, right? We don't earn our way to heaven. It's a free gift of God. But accepting that gift day in and day out, that's not easy. That takes sacrifice, it takes hard work, and it takes hope. Well, hope is nourished by imagination. We have to imagine what it would be like. Now, when I was a kid, it would be very difficult for me to think about heaven. Because I would think about one thing that I liked to do. Basketball was my go-to. And I thought, it's going to be an endless game of basketball, and my shots are going to be falling, my defense is going to be great, we're going to be like neck and neck, but we're going to be a little bit better. I'm, of course, going to be the star. It's going to be perfect. And then I thought, that would be great for an hour. But for an eternity, that would be torture. And so on and so forth. For everything that I could imagine, I thought of something cool on this earth, extended forever, and it always seemed like, after a while, it's going to get old. And then I would think of the concept of eternity. And I would just have to take a nap because my head would start to hurt. Because we've never experienced eternity or infinity on this earth. We've only experienced finite space and time. And yet, if we don't imagine our goal, how are we going to sacrifice for that goal? And so last year, a couple years ago, I read this great book called Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Heaven But Were Too Scared to Ask. It was by this Catholic philosopher, Peter Kraft. And in it, he used the principle of why not? So for every question that was put to him about heaven, he would ask, okay, why not? Will there be dogs? Will I be able to fly? All of these different questions, and he says, okay, I'm going to look at Scripture, going to look at the tradition of the church, all the teaching of the magisterium, and then we're going to say, why not? And it freed me to imagine heaven in a way that was exciting. Because it doesn't mean it's a place where I won't have a body. It means it's a place where my body will be glorified and not bound by space and time the way that it is right now. So will I be able to fly in heaven? Why not? Might be pretty fun. Jesus' glorified body went through walls, so my glorified body is going to have a relationship with space and time different than my current one does. Jesus says in today's gospel, he says, those who are deemed worthy to attain to the coming age and to the resurrection of the dead neither marry nor are given in marriage. They can no longer die, for they are like angels, and they are the children of God. Notice that he says we are like angels, not they become angels. No, we're human beings, and we will be forever. And thanks be to God for that, because he became a human, not an angel. He took on a body. Angels will never have bodies. And yet we someday will be reunited with ours after death. But when he says we become like angels, that means we take on immortality, incorruptibility. No more is it, I woke up with a headache. No more is it going to be this slow deterioration of my body. No, it's going to be a continual perfecting of my body for all eternity. Still, though, I've been speaking in the abstract. Have any of us actually tasted a little bit of the experience of heaven? The answer is yes, I think we have. Who here has ever been in love? Every married person, I expect to see your hand up, otherwise you're about to get in trouble. But even the excitement of that first puppy love, maybe that person that you have no idea where she or he is in the world, but you remember that excitement, that thought of, just the thought of them brought up this joy that was deeper than anything you had experienced before then. Your mind couldn't go to anything else for too long without coming back to her or to him. That experience of that excitement of communion with another person, that's a taste of heaven. Because heaven is a communion with the God who is love. All right, who here has ever watched a documentary like Planet Earth or Life or something that like shows, or National Geographic, something that shows the wonders of this universe? Yeah, they definitely have. I have. The fear that we have in not wanting to imagine God or not wanting to imagine heaven is that we expect that it'll be boring. And why is that? Because we have the worst images of heaven ever. We have images of heaven where it's just God is in the center and there are a bunch of saints and they're just going. And we think, okay, so I'm just going to be staring at God for all of eternity. Or, worse yet, we get the Hallmark version of heaven, where it's just these chubby little angel babies playing harps on clouds. And it's like, I don't want that. And we think of it as this stuffy sitting room where we're scared to sit on the furniture because it's all gold and we don't want to mess it up. And we think, I don't want that for all of eternity. Now, why did I ask if you've ever seen a documentary about the wonders of this universe? Because that universe, exciting though it is, how many lifetimes would it take to explore all the nooks and crannies of just New Mexico, and then just the U.S., and then just the world, and then think of extended into the universe? All of that is a pale reflection of the God who made it. All of the adventure in it, think of a lion chasing a gazelle. That's just a pale reflection of this God who is infinite adventure. And our heavenly reality is getting to explore Him for all of eternity. And guess what? It's an exploration that never ends. Our heavenly reality is that we get to know each other in a more intimate way than we ever did on this earth. That's why it says they neither marry nor are given in marriage, because all of us have a relationship at that time that transcends even human marriage here. Because even the best marriage here, I'm going to ask, who here has been married 50 years? Who here has been married 60 years? 55. Oh. After 60 years of marriage, did you know everything there was to know about your wife? He knew almost nothing. You see that you can spend a lifetime with someone, you could love them with every fiber of your being, spend every waking moment with them, and there's always more mystery than you can imagine. Well, in heaven, we enter into the mystery of every other person who's there. We enter into the mystery of the God who created them all. I guarantee we will not be bored. Heaven, the eternal exploration of every other person that's been created. The eternal exploration of God who created them all. It's something worth sacrificing for. It's something worth living for. And so, dear friends, let us live for heaven.